Lesson 27. We continue reading from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. For the last time today, we wrap it up, at least for now, until we learn a new pranayama. We get back to the book. Chapter 1, Sutra 50. There are two more asanas left proposed by Lord Shiva. We had two of them before, Siddhasana and Padmasana, and now we have Simhasana. Sutra 50, then the Simhasana is described. Place the ankles below the scrotum on either side of the perineum, the right ankle on the left side of it and the left ankle on the right. 51. Place the palms upon the knees, spread out the fingers, and with open mouth look at the tip of the nose with concentrated mind. The open mouth here is not literally. It is the cosmic mouth or Ajna Chakra that is referred to. This is a meditation exercise. However, if you teach yoga with children, it's fun to do this. You open your mouth, you stick out your tongue, and you cross your eyes, and children love that. But there are adults who do it like that because they don't understand the text properly. This is a meditation exercise, not for face muscles or anything like that. It goes much deeper than that. Sutra 52. This is Simhasana, held in great esteem by the highest yogins. This most excellent asana facilitates the three bandhas. When you do this pose, your body is in such a engaged in such way that you trigger the three bandhas as a result. And most notably is the realization of Mula Bandha, the one at the root. Because when you're in this pose and you pay attention, it's subtle. That is why in the sutra before you are told to open the mouth, but which means that you are in a meditative state, so your perception is more subtle. Now when you do this pose, Shima means lion, by the way, you're balancing on your knees and you make a hollow back very distinctly, very strongly. As a result, there is energy here, which is an indication of Mula Bandha. And because you're actively engaged, your stomach, your tummy is tucked in and your throat is engaged. So you, instead of looking at your nose, which is fun with kids, but you're concentrating on the center of your head. So your eyes are not open, your eyes are closed. And to concentrate on the center of the head, we use nada, of course. It is a meditation exercise. And listening to nada, you quieten the mind. And when the mind is quieter, your perception is better, allowing you to realize the mechanism or the existence of the three bandhas. We talked about the bandhas a lot already, so there is nothing new here for you. But this is Simhasana or the lion pose. Sutra 53. Next, the Bhadrasana is described. Place the ankles below the groin on the sides of the perineum, the left ankle on the left and the right ankle on the right, sole to sole. 54. Then firmly hold the feet with the hands which are on their sides and remain motionless. This is Bhadrasana, which destroys all diseases. The yogins who have become siddhas call this Gorakshasana. Now Goraksha is one of the yogis at the very beginning of the lineage, where you have Shiva, then you have Machendra, and Goraksha is the third or the fourth, indicating that this is a valuable, important exercise. Thus, the best of yogins, being free of fatigue in practicing asanas and bandhas, should practice purification of the nadis, Nadi Shuddhana Pranayama, mudra, etc., and control of energy. Let's have a look at Bhadrasana first. Bhadrasana is a classical stretch that people often do in the gym also, but it's often done wrong. For one thing is that people keep their backs bent, so of course you should not. You have to tilt the pelvis and sit straight. And two is people often are bouncing. So of course you don't do that because that disturbs the sattva. It specifically says remain motionless. It's not only physical but also mental. So it's a concentration meditation exercise. So tilt the pelvis and do not bother too much about where the knees are. When you do this regularly, the knees naturally will go down more. So important is that you sit straight, like in Padmasana also. And holding the feet like this is really helping to straighten the back. If you have difficulty with a pose like this, you can sit on your cushion. If it's difficult to keep your back straight, you can sit on a cushion. Then the cushion will actually help you or stimulate the tilt of the pelvis in a natural way. And what is not described here is that when you're more flexible, you can also bend forward, increase the intensity of the engagement. (56) Asanas, the varieties of kumbhaka, the positions called mudra, the concentration upon the nada, inner sound, comprise the sequence of practice in Hatha Yoga. Nada is being mentioned here for the third time already. It is said that most yoga teachers do not know about nada, have never heard about nada. It's crucial. The sequence of practice is described here, starting with asana, kumbhaka, which is pranayama, mudra, which is also energy control, but more powerful than pranayama, and then the meditation aspect of yoga. And it is in this order because you start creating physical harmony, sattva, that will then allow you to do an energy control exercise, pranayama and mudra, increasing the sattva, which is then the foundation for successful meditation. So this is the ideal sequence. You can, if you don't have so much time, you can sit and meditate without preparation, without asana and energy control. And it's still very beneficial, it's still very good, but it will just be a little bit more difficult to build it up in that way. The most powerful approach is to follow asana, pranayama, mudra, and then concentration, meditation, and contemplation, samadhi. 57, the brahmacharin, one devoted to Brahma, who, following a moderate diet, is intent on yoga, renouncing the fruits of his actions, becomes a Siddha after a year. There need be no doubt about this. if yoga is practiced correctly, it has a direct effect. Is why I fell in love with yoga. The very first time, I didn't even know that I was doing yoga. But what I did know is how it changed the way I feel. It had such a deep impact on me that I wanted to know what it was, how it worked, and I went to the library to get a book and I started practicing on my own from the book. And it completely changed my life. The sutra says in 1 year you reach Siddhi or Siddha, you become a Siddha within 1 year. That is quite a high level, that you are manifesting supernatural, what they call supernatural or paranormal abilities. And that is no exaggeration. If you practice regularly and you do it correctly, yoga is a very powerful system to transform the human being. And it starts from the very first day that you start practicing. That is my personal experience. 58. Moderate diet is defined to mean agreeable and sweet food, leaving 1/4 of the stomach free, eaten as an offering to please Shiva. First try to understand that this book was written in a time very different from the time that we live in now. There were no supermarkets, and there definitely was no processed foods, fast food, and all the junk food that destroys people's health, basically. One thing. The other thing is that the word moderate means that, in his words, the stomach, you should leave 1/4 of the stomach, 1/4 of the stomach, free to please Shiva. Shiva is God. What do people do? They make an altar in their house with candles and some statues. And what do? They put food there. Because this sutra says so. You need to honor Shiva. You know what this is about? This is about energy, not about worshipping God or something. Shiva is energy. Why do we need... What this means in practice means don't overeat. Because when you eat a lot, when you eat a big meal, everybody knows. It makes you very tired. What does it mean? It costs you a lot of energy. Energy that you then cannot use for your spiritual goals. So eat light and don't eat too much. That is not to worship God, that is to maintain your levels of energy, which is symbolically described here as Shiva. 59. The following things are said to be not salutary for yogins. Things that are bitter, sour, pungent, salty, heating, green vegetables, other than those ordained, sour gruel, sesame or mustard oil, sesamum, mustard, alcohol, fish, flesh, including that of the goat, curds, buttermilk, horsegram, the fruit of the jujube, oil cakes, asafoetida, and garlic. Go to a Korean temple, and this is how you eat. Because Buddhists and yogis, they have the same kind of diet. And the reason why they eat like this is because lots of the foods that are described here disturb your sattva. They either make you tamas or they make you rajas. If food is heavy, it makes you tamas. But when food is spicy, pungent, strong taste, it makes you rajas. And the goal of any spiritual practitioner in a temple or a yogi is, of course, to have the best results from your practice And that is, of course, better achieved if the foundation is already relatively harmonious, sattvic, by having a light and sattvic diet, food that doesn't disturb too much your energy balance. But another interesting thing is that, in contradiction with what we believe, he advises not to eat green vegetables other than those ordained. Now, why is that? Staple foods. You understand the word staple foods? Staple foods are the foods that are the foundation of everything that we eat, our diet, which is grains, beets and roots. Green leaves are above the earth. And the function of green leaves is to transform energy from the sun into energy to grow what is below the earth, or to grow fruits, to grow grains, to grow beets. So green leaves, salad, etc., are not complete. They don't contain all the building blocks that we need to sustain life. But they are very healthy. They have lots of fiber, which is very healthy for digestion. But they also have lots of vitamins and minerals. What they don't have, but what is crucial in our diet, is the proteins in large amounts. Proteins and all the amino acids. So the basis of our food should exist out of foods that contain the whole spectrum of amino acids and proteins. And in addition to that, you can have green leaves. But it should not be the main part of your meal. You will see. In this sutra tells you what you should not eat. There is a sutra which tells you what you should eat or what you can eat. Sutra 60. Diets of the following nature should be avoided as unhealthy. Food that having been once cooked has grown cold and is heated again. Food that is dry, devoid of fat, or has an excess of salt or sourness, that is bad or has too much of vegetables mixed with it. Again, this was written in a time that life was very different. So it tells us that if you have cooked a meal, it's not good to store it and then heat it up again. But this was written in a time when refrigerators did not exist. And when you have food and you leave it out of the fridge, the growth of bacteria in the food is very rapid once it is cooled down and not put in a fridge, when it's not refrigerated. So there is a great risk of upsetting the stomach or serious disease if you eat food that has started to decay or rotten. It suggests that you eat a meal and you throw away the leftover. I do not agree with that, because food is very valuable. There are lots of people in this world that have nothing to eat, and we have fridges. So I always put food in the fridge and I will eat it later, finish it later if I have leftovers. That's just a sensible thing to do. And it's important to keep in mind that this was written when fridges did not exist. If you follow this literally, it's kind of a little bit of extreme or radical. So follow your feeling in that sense. Food that is dry, meaning devoid of fat. I grew up in a time that people were obsessed with fat. It is the time when they started producing food without fat. All the light products and fat-free products and low-fat products. Because we thought it makes people fat. And everybody is concerned about their shape. But fat is very important for the functioning of the brain and the nerve system. So it is actually healthy to eat fat. And if you eat a healthy diet, fat doesn't make you fat. It really doesn't. And it is better, it is healthier to eat natural fats, like whole milk, and just meats with some fat. It's healthier to eat natural fats than to eat products that have been processed to get rid of the fats. It not only gets rid of the fats, but it changes the structure of the food, and it's much less healthy and sometimes even harmful. So keep it simple, keep it basic, and don't be afraid to eat a little bit of fat, because actually it's really helpful, it's really healthy. It's actually necessary for proper functioning of the brain and the nerve system. '61. In the beginning, fire, women or men, these days more women do yoga than men, so sex, and journeys should be avoided. For thus Goraksha says, association with bad company, basking near the fire, women and men, and long journeys, bathing early in the morning, fasting, etc., and hard physical activity should be avoided. Well, what is described here is what you find in a temple or a monastery. You go to a temple, you have temples for women and you have temples for men. And if they are together, they are separated within the same space. The reason is, if you want to develop spiritually, you need to focus on it, at least for a certain period of time. And during that certain period of time, you focus on your study, your practice, and you try to avoid all other possible distractions. Romance is not a bad thing, but at that point, at that time, it becomes a distraction. So at least for the benefit of your development, for a while, just focus on your study and your practice, and postpone your need for romance. Fire here, throughout time, the book has been written and rewritten and interpreted and translated. And what is written between square brackets has been added to the text later. And sometimes it makes sense, but here they're really off the mark, because fire is mentioned just as fire, and then somebody who reinterpreted the text at some point in time, long after it was originally written, he added in between square brackets the basking near the fire during winter. And that makes it literal about warmth or heat. This is, of course, about Manipura chakra. Manipura chakra is the chakra that is responsible for all your movement. So when you feel restless, you start to do things. You start to move. You go out. When you're angry, it comes from Manipura chakra. When you have desires, it starts in Manipura chakra. So when you're restless and constantly needing to move and do things, because of that restlessness, because of your fire, really, your spiritual practice isn't going anywhere. So you need to be in circumstances where you keep distractions, emotions and desires at a low level as possible. Long journeys, this was written when airplanes, trains, cars didn't exist. So a long journey really means walking up the mountain, down the mountain, up the mountain, down the mountain, all day long. And then sleep and repeat the next morning. If you wanted to go somewhere, you were on your way for days or weeks sometimes. And it is exhausting. You cannot focus on spiritual practice if you're traveling in that way. So hard labor, working very hard, being subjected to very rigorous training, journeys, etc., should be avoided at least for the time. 62. The following things are suitable to be taken by the yogin: the wheat, rice, barley, the grain called sashtika, and purified food: milk, ghee, brown sugar, butter, sugar candy, honey, dry ginger, the vegetable called pataloka, and the 5 pot herbs: green, gram, and pure water. So here you see the staple foods described. All the nuts, seeds, grains, beets, roots are all these food products contain all the elements for life. You plant it in the soil and life grows out of it. When you have a leaf and you plant it in the soil, it won't do anything. But if you have a seed, a root, a beet, a grain, you put it in the soil, it creates new life. Because it contains all the elements that life requires. So that is why they are staple foods. That is why it is recommended to make them the mainstay of your diet. And then he mentions a couple of superfoods: milk, ghee, which is clarified butter, brown sugar, butter, sugar candy, honey, dried ginger. Now, what is a little bit strange, at least from the perspective of the modern human being, is that he mentions sugar, honey, brown sugar. We live in a time where we are being told to reduce intake. But this was written in a time when sugar was a luxury. Sugar, honey, etc. People didn't have any of it. And to get it was very difficult or expensive. So if you had a little bit, that would be very beneficial. Now it is everywhere, especially in processed foods, and we get too much of it. It becomes a poison rather than a beneficial food. Then ginger seems to be belonging in the other sutra that tells us which foods not to eat, because it's a little bit spicy, a little bit strong, but ginger gives us heat. And since people have a tendency naturally to be in tamas, ginger can actually help balance that. 63. The yogin should take nourishing and sweet food mixed with ghee and milk. It should nourish the dhatus and be pleasing and suitable. And this is the whole point. It should nourish the dhatus. Remember, the dhatus are the 7 building blocks that are represented by the elephant with 7 trunks that is symbol of Muladhara Chakra. Muladhara chakra is the root of our physical existence. The elephant with 7 trunks is a symbol of that chakra, representing the 7 materials, so to speak, out of which our whole body is constructed. Plasma, blood, fat, muscle tissue, brain and marrow, ovum, semen, and that's 7 of them. So every muscle tissue exists out of one of these or a combination of these tissues. 64. Any person who is not lethargic in the pursuit of different forms of yoga attains perfection, siddhi, through practice, be he young, old, or even very old, sickly or weak. When I started teaching yoga in Korea, yoga was not so much known yet, but it started exploding very quickly, in the early 2000s. And what you saw, there were programs there were teacher training programs where one of the conditions was you have to have a beautiful body. And it just made me, I was flabbergasted reading something like that. Because yoga is for everybody. This sutra tells us, even when you're sick, old, weak, yoga is for everybody. I dare say even more, the poorer your condition, the more you will actually benefit. The more important it is that you do something like yoga. And throughout all those years that I've been teaching yoga, I've often got inquiries from people saying, well, I'm a little bit stiff. Can I do yoga? Or I'm a total beginner. Is this fit for me? Yeah, it's fit for everybody. But there is a word used in this sutra, the word perfection. You reach perfection. And people misinterpret perfection. Because the perfection that we normally think about is the perfection that makes people very tensed, stressed, because you want to be the best and you're afraid of failure. That is not what this means. Perfection here means that you are a whole human being again. As a result of practice of yoga, all the 3 levels of your being become harmonious. The physical, the mental, and the spiritual level are all equally active and work in harmony with each other. Unconditioned people do not function like that. So perfection here is not about stress and being afraid of failure. It's about being fully functional again, as you are supposed to be according to your blueprint. Also, this sutra tells us that you must practice if you want to benefit from yoga. Any person who is not lethargic in the pursuit of yoga. Being lethargic means that you think about it and maybe you talk about it, but you are lazy. You are too lazy to actually make time to practice regularly. And it's very frustrating. We all go through this because we are busy or there's change taking place in our lives. Sometimes you can't. It's very difficult to fit in yoga but it's frustrating because you miss something. If you practice regularly, there are huge benefits, but you must practice. Without practice, it doesn't work. He's concluding here, chapter 1, because Sutra 65 basically is an extension of Sutra 64, where he says, one who is intent on practice will obtain siddhi, not one who is idle. Yoga siddhi is not obtained by a mere reading of the scriptures. So practice, practice, practice. And he touches upon something here. He says that yoga, the siddhi is not obtained by mere reading of the scriptures. There are scholars, highly educated people, who study Sanskrit. They study the old books, including maybe the Hatha Yoga Pradipika and Sutras of Patanjali, the Vedas and the Shastras. They're scholars, but they never practiced yoga. And those people write books about a practical science that they have not experienced themselves. So those books are very difficult to read. I've tried to read books about yoga. People often ask me, what do you recommend to read before I start with your course? And I say, don't read, just come to the class. Because almost all books are written by people who do not understand yoga properly. And so you start reading 1 page, 2 page, 3 page, and then you scratch your head and you say, what is this about? I get lost. I just get a headache from this so complicated and so scientific language and theorizing. But yoga is not scientific. It's a science, of course, but it's a science of life. It's a practical science. And anybody who writes about yoga must first practice yoga, at least for several years. So most books, you can just throw them away. Most books are really... I bought books that I thought this must be really interesting, science of this and the science of that, and after 3-4 pages, and I start again and I read again, and then I think, my God, this is not going anywhere. Just stick to what you already know. Sutra 66, siddhi is not achieved by wearing the dress of a yogin or by talking about it. Practice alone is the cause of success. This is the truth without a doubt. There is a documentary. It's called Kumar. I think it's still available on YouTube. It's a very interesting story of a guy from Indian heritage. So he looks like an Indian, but he was born in America, and he's actually an IT specialist in Silicon Valley. But he's very intelligent, very smart. And at some point, just as a joke, he decided to dress up like a yogi. So he put on the traditional dress, he put on a turban on his head, and he adopted this funny Indian English accent. And he started traveling around, visiting yoga studios and spiritual communities, and people started worshipping him like a god. He didn't know anything about yoga, but he wore the dress of a yogi, and people were deluded by that. We live in a world like that. There are many fake teachers, not only in yoga, in everything. And watching the documentary, because it started as a joke, but what he found as a result of the joke was so shocking to him that he decided to make a documentary about it. It's called Kumar. Once I turn off the phone, I will look it up for you. If you have time, it will be very interesting eye-opening actually. Because it will make you realize that many people, they do what he tells you here not to do. Just the clothes of a yogi doesn't make you a siddhi. Or a siddha, doesn't lead to siddhi. And yet that is what many people do. I dare say a real yogi you wouldn't recognize when you walk in the street. When you walk in Myeongdong with thousands of people, a real yogi wouldn't stand out. You wouldn't recognize that person. But what do people do? They put on funny clothes. They take on a funny hairstyle because they want to be seen. They want to be recognized. And so most of the times they are more focused on being admired by people than they are focused on the quality of their knowledge or their science. If you watch the documentary, it will open your eyes and you will be able to see what's going on also in Korea, where there are actually many sects, spiritual communities that are led by people that actually do more harm than good. They hurt people with their false teachings, and they take lots of money from them, and they abuse them, even also sexual abuse. And I think there are some documentaries on Netflix about particularly that issue. It's shocking. That Kumar is taking a look at all these kind of things, not in such a shocking way, but he's just exposing the whole fake world of people pretending to be something that they actually really are not. All right, and then the last one, the last sutra of chapter 1, Sutra 67, the asanas, the different kumbhakas, which is pranayama, and the excellent karanas, which is the mudras, are all in the course of Hatha Yoga to be practiced till the fruit of Raja Yoga is obtained. Raja Yoga is not a practice, it's a condition. I hope that is clear. Raja Yoga is the condition in which the crown chakra is functional and allowing you to have to manifest characteristics that in other people are not manifesting, are dormant. Deep insight, wisdom, intuition, which in Korean is called chikkam, and I like that word because it means direct insight. Being able to catch the essence of people, situations, anything that you put your mind on, quickly touching upon the essence of things. Chikkam, direct intuition. That is what Raja Yoga means. Being able or to manifest all those wonderful characteristics located in the crown chakra that in unconditioned people are simply not functioning. That was it. Questions? Let's have a short break.